Hello everybody, welcome back to Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming through a feminist lens. Today we are the three of us, Alex, Jem and Matt, and we're going to be talking about things that in games that they're not very ladylike, not very appropriate, and all of the baggage that comes with that. Before we start, remember that we do have our Patreon now, which you can find at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. You can support us there and you get access to our monthly bonus episodes. Very, very exciting. Now, the topic at hand, I'm hoping this will be one of the times where all these things are theoretical to me because they've never been applied to me. Whereas I imagine for you two, these are things that you've grown up with and have been, just weighted with over the course of your lives. So I wanted to start with what comes to mind when you think of things that are considered unladylike?
Well, I think one of the major things for me is like how somebody dresses, whether that's ladylike or not ladylike. I think you can, I guess, perceive somebody as being ladylike by what they wear, perhaps, or at least that's how I felt in childhood anyway. I remember when I was very little, my mum used to love putting me in loads of dresses and stuff, and then I had a rebellious phase where I just rejected all dresses and wanted to wear trousers and jeans and lots of things with combat print on, and then in the mid-90s there was all those trousers with the fringes coming up, they're really awful, and the netting flares as well. I was wearing all of those when I was pre-teen / early teens, because I didn't wear dresses. I don't do dresses, and I don't do pink either. But now I find, now that I'm maybe, into my 30s now, basically, I do quite enjoy wearing a dress every now and then, because I might just fancy wearing nice ladylike clothes and feeling like that for a day. So it's an interesting topic because it's made me think about what is ladylike and how do I ascribe to that or do I not? And it's just interesting to think about. But yeah, that's one aspect, is I guess clothing. That's the first thing that sprung to mind for me.
How about you, Jem?
Yeah, probably body language. And verbal language.
Yeah.
So how you stand, how you sit, how you walk, and how much space you take up is definitely something.
Yeah,
So
that's a good one.
a lady is supposed to be seen and not noticed. And it's supposed to be you're supposed to be compact and considered in your movements and fluid. And so I think sort of anything that takes up space is definitely not very ladylike, and obviously swearing or coarse language is also not very ladylike. And I mean, we even still today, don't we? We have this thing where people say "Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have sworn with it because of the ladies," And when I was in work, I remember multiple times some guy swearing and then apologising to all the women in the room, not the men. And this idea that we're so delicate, our little delicate ears can't cope with the foul language coming out of these mouths. So it's body language and verbal language.
Another thing that's popped into my head is also about modesty, and if you dress modestly, that's quite ladylike, I think. If you show a lot of skin, if you dress in perhaps a provocative way, that's not very ladylike. That's another sort of section of it as well. Is when does that stray into being more sexual rather than unladylike and ladylike? But I'm sure that's something we'll get onto when we talk about the video game characters.
Yeah, I think this is a good, in the spirit of like, we could go round in circles while you two could go playing tennis with it. I've got some advice from history for you both that I think you should sit down quietly and listen to me say. Not sarcastic, in case anyone watching or listening didn't catch that. So going back to I think it's 100 AD or BC China.
Okay, that's quite a wide period, but yeah. We'll go with
it. And this is in case you wanted to be, you're looking for a place in an aristocratic household or an imperial harem. Okay. And there are 3 obediences and 4 virtues. I think I'll pepper these in as we go through as they come up. So there is the 4 feminine virtues, which is what made me think, because I thought I had ringing in my head the words womanly virtue. So I'm sure I've heard that somewhere before. And so I googled it and found this. You've got feminine conduct. So that's your behaviour, how much space you take up, what you do with your body. Feminine speech, what you say, swearing. I'm not sure what comportment means. And then feminine works.
That's basically just the way that you behave in good society.
Yes. I think one major thing that ties a lot of this together is class as well. Because to be ladylike is obviously associated with being of a certain class as well, or at least a lot of people, I think, feel that way even now still. And to be unladylike made you be perceived as a lower class, perhaps. In the way that you behave or dress or speak. Yeah.
I think the clue is in the name, really, isn't it? It's aspiring to be the part of the landed gentry.
Yeah, lord and lady, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the need to concentrate on. I don't suppose you either do weaving or spinning.
No.
I know. I'm sure spinning doesn't mean like bicycle stuff.
No, it's big class.
But you need to bathe regularly and keep one's body free from filth and disgrace.
Well, I'm not entirely opposed to that one. I think we should all bathe regularly.
Yeah.
It depends what you mean by disgrace as well.
Yes, it does.
Never utter slanderous words. So this is really interesting. So I'm reading from a text from, is CE before or after Jesus?
CE is Common Era, so after Jesus. Yeah.
So 1st century CE. Common Era.
After Jesus. Yeah.
A female Chinese historian on the lessons for women. So this is where all this is coming from. So unhurried composure being that fluid, orderly manner, guard one's actions with a sense of shame. Women's virtue, choose words carefully when speaking, no slanderous words. And so, every time I was reading through this, I think, this is literally everything that happened is still the pressure on today. So I want everyone to bear all these things in mind from 2,000 years ago and today as they are spreading through the gaming world as well. I think I sort of covered. Have you got more to say on how much you feel these pressures as you do now and as you have done in the past, how they've impacted your behaviour?
I think I definitely was aware of it growing up, and how obviously, like, I was a bit more tomboyish, but that was accepted within my family. Like, they were fine with it; they didn't mind too much. But I was aware that I was going against a trend, as it were, to be more ladylike or more feminine, or yeah. And I think to a certain extent there is a kind of, I don't know if I call it a pressure, because I think I just feel more comfortable with myself now as an adult, so I just dress however I feel like on whatever day which is a nice feeling. But I think certainly growing up there's a lot of pressure to conform, particularly within like a school environment where it's all quite tribal, isn't it? Yeah, so I can definitely say I felt it more growing up, I think. But I don't know if you feel differently, Jem.
I do feel differently. I have never felt under pressure to be ladylike. I've never. I mean, I recognise that it exists, and I know that people do feel sort of under pressure from it. But I wasn't a tomboy, much as I dislike that term. But I did spend considerable amounts of my sort of, well, right up until my tweens, building dens and exploring muddy streams and racing around, building time machines and climbing trees. And I always got on well with the boys at school. So I just kind of would horse around with them, and, you know, that was always the thing. And it wasn't really until I started going out clubbing and, you know, going out on a Friday night or whatever, that I started.
Yeah.
But I think for me, rather than a ladylike pressure on me, I've always felt a more pressured by my physical appearance. I felt more pressured by height and weight, and, you know, how my hair is, and whether I can do my makeup. So it's those sorts of things that have had more of an impact on what I felt I can and can't wear, and how I can and can't behave. I've also always been, if I'm in a dress, then I will behave more ladylike. If I'm wearing jeans, and I used to love this, it used to really entertain me, because I'd wear a dress and I'd feel like, oh, I'm so feminine and delicate, and I'd like all, you know, play that role. And then I'd put on a pair of jeans and I'd be sort of like man spreading and just generally taking up space and really comfortable in it. And I think, you know, I've never really associated with people that have strong feelings about, you know, how genders should behave. I've always been kind of like on the sort of fringes in those worlds, because I hang out with a lot of geeks, and so it doesn't. I think the expectations that I've felt on my behaviour and my appearance and my language have come much more from social expectations of how a woman of my age, a woman in my situation, all those sorts of things might behave, rather than a sort of general ladylikeness. And I've also been very happy to. I actually have issues with the fact that I used to say things like, you know, oh, I'm a bit of a laddie girl. It's like, I think that's an extremely problematic thing. But so I haven't really felt any pressure to be ladylike in any scenario, actually. Even in my 2 weddings, you know, I did wear lovely white dresses and really enjoyed it, but I didn't but I still also emoted a lot and swore and rang. So, it's,
Yeah. It's interesting to think about, like, how we all know, well, if we're brought up a certain way, we all know, like, what is good manners and what is bad manners. But it's interesting to think about where that kind of turns into, like, should it be more for one gender than the other? Or, like, I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be, but I'm just like, in what way does society feel like it's more a woman's responsibility to have good manners than it is a man's? It's just interesting to think about, because we all know, like, you mustn't put your elbows on the table, you mustn't
just
like
put
eat with
my
your
elbow.
or speak with your mouth full.
As you said that.
Literally, me too. Yeah, but all those sorts of table manners and things. Is that like societally? I don't know if that's the word. Is that more expected for women to be doing, or is it for everybody? Or, like, if we think about, traditional views of like how men and women should behave.
Yeah.
It's just, it's bringing up all sorts of interesting
I think that's
questions,
really interesting, actually, and I think that is probably true. I think women are expected to abide by cultural norms in ways that men aren't expected to,
they're given a kind of path, aren't they?
Even in so much as like, if you go out somewhere, the women are expected to behave and dress in certain ways. But if a man turns up and, not abiding by those same cultural rules, then, people just go, oh, it's just the guys, isn't it? They just wear T-shirts and tracky bottoms. That's all right. And so I think I think you're right. I think there's that. I think there is that, whatever the rules are.
Yeah. There's a sense of, if you think about what we mean by pressure, there's internal pressure that, like, is the voice inside of you saying, I should be wearing a dress, I should be not swearing, shouldn't be doing this. And then there's the external pressure, which is 2,000 years ago they had eunuchs who would enforce this in the harems. So so that's the kind of so the internal pressure is you've internalized the external pressure. And we think about who decided what ladylike meant and why has it persisted for 2,000 years. It provides, I wonder if this is either of your experiences, all the rules for masculinity, they are shown to be completely arbitrary, and a man can do absolutely none of those things and still be a man and not lose any opportunity. For example, have you seen Rupert Murdoch got married the other day for another time, and there was just a picture of his face, and he is just the most putrid, vile, horrifying little man who he has literally shaped the last probably 50 years through his media empire. And he doesn't work out. He's not 6'2". He's not muscly. He's not loud and boisterous and a womanizer. So it doesn't matter. But this is the question that this brought up. Do you feel like you have lost opportunities because you don't follow these ladylike things? For example, any woman going into work anywhere wears decent clothes and wears makeup and all those things. Whereas if they came in just hair dishevelled and no makeup on and tracksuits and and a jumper might go, well, there's no law against not doing those things, but then the men above them would that could harm her in terms of opportunities.
It's an interesting thought, because I never really wear makeup, especially not going to work, because it just takes too long in the morning. Obviously now I work from home, so it doesn't even matter. But when I used to commute, like I had made a point of just not wearing any makeup at all. I mean, obviously I dress smartly, or just dressed like smart casually, the standard museum worker uniform, as it were. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, when you talk about like it being damaging not to be ladylike in certain situations, I tend to I have noticed that when I'm around different people in different social groups in different situations, I will change the way I behave. Like, so say for example, if I was socializing as a university student back when, I would have been like, no, not filtered or anything. I'd just be swearing, drinking, all that sort of stuff, just letting everything that came into my head out. Whereas in like a different environment, like work or like beyond that, or if I'm with an older group of people, say, then I wouldn't be I wouldn't be like that, because that's just how you behave in certain social situations with different people. And I guess that's to do with all sorts of things, like levels of like similar ages, and like just levels of respect that you have for people, and like the way that you behave with people. And I guess there's like some internal thing that says, if I behave this way with this group of people, I'm going to fit in more, and therefore I'm going to have more of an advantage, or I'm going to fit into this group and be accepted by this group, and that's going to be a good thing. So I need to behave in this way, but I need to behave in this different way for this group. And I think that's kind of a thing that's in the back of our heads as human beings. I don't know if everyone else feels like that, but that's something I've noticed, like, as I've grown up, is that I have, as the occasion calls for it, have changed the way I behave and the way I speak, depending on who I'm with at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do feel like not conforming to feminine standards has had a negative and career impacting effect on me. I mean, when my first job, my second job was working for a company that did rail and road infrastructure services in the UK. And so you can imagine that was quite a male-dominated business. And the director for my department, the head of the sort of section that I was in, was had worked his way up from working as a sort of like engineer on the rail tracks to being director of this whole part of the business, which is obviously pretty awesome on his part. But he was incredibly gender stereotypical and expected all the women to, know their place and to wear makeup, preferably high heels, and smart skirts, suits to work. And I just was not that person. I just wasn't that person. And I also wasn't the sort of woman that would, just sit back and take any crap or not speak out. And it didn't go well in the end, because I challenged him one too many times, and he just didn't like that. And I think the thing is that, it's not just about, not swearing or wearing heels. It's also about
staying quiet and
knowing your place. And I think that's the other thing. And I don't feel that this is necessarily a gendered thing. I think that everyone has this challenge to kind of deal with in their lives, because we all have positions in society that we either adhere to or not. But I do feel that, I've never been very good at just sort of taking somebody's authority because they happen to be male, and in a slightly more powerful position than me. I've always felt like, well, in order for you to, I will be respectful and I will be polite and civil. I mean, I'm not confrontational, but I'm not just going to assume that you can treat me however you like because of that, and that's something, that level of respect has to be earned. So I think for me, it's been really interesting, and I have wondered. I read there was some research done. I'm trying to look it up. Actually, there was some research done about the importance or not of wearing makeup in the workplace, and how that impacts on your career. And they discovered that people that don't wear makeup are less likely to get promotions, and it does have a negative impact in not in every scenario, obviously, but and possibly this is something that's changing now that we're all wearing loungewear and working from home half the time. But when I heard that research, I did sort of think, like, do I not take it seriously enough? Like, should I have been more sensible about sensible is not the right word. Should I have been more considered about the impact that bucking the trend would have? But I think what it's come down to for me, and this is a general life lesson really, is that in order to be happy in my work life and my life, I have to work with and for people who respect me for who I am. And if that means that I've ruled out 90% of the places out there, then I just have to find the 10% that are a good match for me. And I think there is a thing about that, but that's a privilege that I'm in a position where I can pick and choose, and not everyone has access to that privilege and that level of choice. So I think I do think it's been career impacting, but I don't care.
That's very interesting. But I was thinking about it as well, and I think if you are someone, doesn't matter what gender, but if you are someone that causes a fuss a lot, then that's a disadvantage in like within even a school environment or like in a work environment. I know growing up with cerebral palsy that I've had to like fight a lot of battles to get access to the accommodation and support that I need, and having to always be the one to cause a fuss to get things going. I think I can definitely remember a time in a previous job where I made an assumption about something that I would have been entitled to, which was a specific parking space with a blue badge, and I had a blue badge, so naturally I parked there. But anyway, apparently I wasn't allowed because no one's allowed to park. And so I had a little bit of a fun time trying to argue that one. But I think after that point, after those discussions were had, I was probably not looked on as favourably within the organisation as I was previously. So I think if you do have to, stir the pot a little bit and kind of raise your head above the parapet and say, actually, I don't agree with this. I think this is not okay. Then it can sometimes be a disadvantage in a workplace that isn't very adaptable and very tolerant.
And I think that as a woman, that's something that happens. That's more noted, isn't it, when you stand out?
Yes.
you step out of the norm as a woman. Yeah.
Yes, because that's not ladylike, is it? Stepping out of the norm.
It is, because the thing of like kicking up a fuss, that's such the nature of the system that we're trying to combat by kicking up a fuss is absolutely insane. The system is as insane and arbitrary and extreme as possible, and individuals can't. An individual saying I'm disabled and I need a disabled parking space should be, oh yeah, of course, parking space there, I've done that for you. But because of the system that's saying, especially as a disabled woman, it's not just an employee to an employer, it's a woman daring to make a demand of me. I'm assuming it was a man, but if it was not.
No, it was. I think. Well, the head was a man, but he sent slightly lower down women to come and talk to me. Yeah. So that was fun.
So that's when you say, like, this is the problem with a lot of places when workplaces try to unionize, because it's far too easy because there's a concept in the union organizing course that I've just finished called the organic leaders. And they're the people, they're employees who aren't part of management. They don't have official leadership roles, but they're the people in a workplace who are trusted by people. That if you talk to 10 people, 4 of them will say, oh yeah, if I had a problem, I'd go and talk to her or him or whoever. And then those are the people that's a natural charisma thing. So that's why it's organic. It's not like mechanical or anything like that. And as with the best organic leaders, it's far too easy just to crush them in, like, it's easy to fire them or to penalize them and like that. And then in plenty of places, like in America with the civil rights movement, it's really easy just to kill them. And then once they're dead, there are only a handful of the absolute diamonds that are only once in generations, that are Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Fred Hampton. They're the ones that the powerful people go, those are the people that can, those are the organic leaders that can bring everyone together. And that's why people fight, you get fought so hard when you try and stand up for yourself, and it can be at your cost. Right. This has been a really interesting, it's been interesting just asking the question and just letting you guys just go, because there's obviously so much of it to talk about. Moving on to the gaming world. So we know from our experience doing over 100 episodes of this podcast now that the physical world and the problems that women face there are eerily similar in the gaming world. We'll start. So what you've described about your experience in the physical world, do you feel a similar dynamic on you as a female gamer, and how, if at all, that has impacted the way that you interact with games?
I posted on our Reddit as us on Reddit this week a little comic strip that came up in my Facebook memories, actually, from 5 years ago, of a woman going in and saying, have you got this in she didn't even get that far to ask the question, and the guy behind the counter just said, "Oh, girls' games are in the back of the shop," and she just screams at him. She's like, "All games are girls' games," and I think that is the thing. It's there is a feeling. That's the one. There is a feeling that this idea that certain games can't be played by women or shouldn't be played by women, and I think these are the games where women get, if they go on Voice, they get all this like, oh my gosh, it's a girl, it's a woman, and I think it's really frustrating. So because all games are girls' games and all games are boys' games, and and I think it's the same with like what characters you play in these games as well. So like when I did my hardcore World of Warcraft years, most of the characters played by women, and I did know they were female identifying, at least in the offline world. They were mostly healers. They mostly played healers or sort of ranged damage dealers. So they're still sort of stepping into feminine roles, and they would often be less interested in the mechanics of the game, more interested in how their characters looked. A lot of the ways that they were behaving in that space was still very stereotypical. Whereas I played a druid tank, and I was like, at the front of the fight in the form of a bear. I just loved it. I loved it. We've talked before about how in my multi-user dungeon days, I played a sort of nymph character and floated around in next to nothing. Generally, one of the skills of a nymph in that game was seduce, where you could kind of like seduce a male character, a player or a non-player character, to reduce their ability to fight back. So it was extremely gendered, and I jumped into that with both my feet very happily. So I think there is definitely a pressure there from many different layers, I think. But yeah.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.